Hey, John.
Nick, man,
Really,
we're back.
really excited.
I've been dreading this. I mean, we didn't. I just realized we didn't talk about what we're doing here in this series at the beginning of the last one. I mean, that was a lot
No,
of fun. But
yeah, yeah,
what
yeah.
what are we doing? What are we doing here, Nick?
So I am out here in the Welsh countryside, sat beside J.K. Rowling's metaphorical lake, and John is way over in Oklahoma City, in Joe's metaphorical shed. So this is J.K. Rowling's explanation for her creative process. She gets her ideas from the lake in either formed or unformed fashion. This sort of amorphous blob. That's her idea, and that's formed from her life experiences, from the things she's read, and it's her unresolved issues that are still permeating her subconscious. She takes that idea over to John's shed, and there she works on it using her artistry. So she makes form of this idea.
There it is. And so we're for Rowling's 60th birthday. We're doing a flash survey of the 21 books that she's written, her golden threads, and some of the key mysteries that remain in Rowling studies. So that her 31 July birthday, when she completes the astrological 60-year cycle, that she can begin her life anew on August 1st, in the second life that she gets. So today, Nick, we're we're going to talk about the book that you either love or you love to hate. Uh, Cormoran Strike and the Career of Evil, or just Career of Evil.
So yeah, I'm a little bit nervous today. I'm nervous for two reasons. So the first reason is, for a long time, this was by far my least favorite of the Cormoran Strike novels. Not because I thought it was poorly written or poorly plotted. It's because I struggled so much. I found it an anti-page turner, and the problem for me is when you come upon the Donny chapters, when you enter the mind of that serial killer, and as you know, there's no epigraph, so you know it's coming. Then I would keep finding excuses to do something else. And
Time
the
to
second,
clean those shelves in the attic.
exactly,
I've been
and
putting that off.
and the second reason is, John and I have a lot of fun on these chats. Um,
Speak for yourself there, Lake Boy.
I'm conscious that the guys watching this are going to watch two old men talking about feminism, and I do worry about how engaging that's going to be. But also, we're going to be talking about quite serious topics today. So for my lake, uh, the the pillar, or if you're American, the buoy in the lake is one of Rowling's core beliefs, which is um, her her problems with and her fight against men's violence to women and girls. So within the Strike series, um, to this point, she hasn't really explored it. So the killer in Cuckoo's Calling, I think it's fair to say he's an equal opportunities killer. So his first kill was his brother, then his sister, and then Onifade, who was absolutely a vulnerable woman. And his fourth victim, thankfully stopped in the nick of time, was going to be Cormoran Strike. So it's a male killer,
No, no,
yes.
no. It was going to be his girlfriend.
Yeah. Well,
Strike,
yeah.
strike, strike protects the girlfriend. Yeah. Anyway, sorry.
Um, but Well, no, because Robin comes into the office and Strike is on the floor and he's been stabbed in the arm and he's going back for another, and it's only Robin's distraction.
I'm not disputing that Robin,
Yeah,
that clearly uh, Bristow intends to kill Strike,
yeah.
but he also needed to dispose of his girlfriend, and I think the only reason that he didn't
Oh,
kill
yes.
her
Yes, yes,
was
yes, yes. You're
because
right.
Strike intervened. That she knew that the alibi was no good,
Yeah.
and so
Sorry.
she had to meet an unfortunate end.
In my shipper's heart, you said girlfriend, and I just assumed Robin. Um,
My goodness, get behind me, Satan! That's terrible.
Silkworm, of course.
You should read this. This friend of mine wrote a piece about how Robin and Strike are not going to be boyfriend girlfriend. You should read it.
That sounds that
Oh, oh,
sounds
oh, wait,
that
oh,
sounds
oh, oh.
really interesting, John.
Yeah, you wrote it. Wait a minute.
So my secret's out, John. My secret's out now.
That's right. You're going to be canceled soon. Um, so, how does this? Where is she in? This is what, 2015?
Yeah, 2015. So, working hard, although I suspect not terrifically hard, on the cursed child. I think this was once they got to rehearsals. I think she was much more involved, and then of course she was attending performances, and that would have tied up a lot of time. Fantastic Beasts, I think she's pretty much finished that first script because they're already casting people now. And they're
The
starting
script
to
we'll
have
never
read-throughs.
see. The script
Yeah,
we'll
I
never
know,
see. Wow.
I know. But it's also, so now they've announced that Fantastic Beasts is going to be a trilogy. Of course, we know that later grows is intended to be a 5-film series, but at this point it's supposed to be a trilogy. So she's already created a tremendous amount of material for the Fantastic Beasts. Um, and now we have release of a Career of Evil, just a little bit more than a year after the Silkworm, and Career of Evil sort of explodes onto the theme of violence against women and girls to really quite a disturbing degree. So it's populated by monsters. So Strike doesn't know who is responsible for this mysterious leg, and he comes up with a list of of suspects, all of whom are inhuman monsters. As I mentioned, we get in the head of one of them, and that's really quite disturbing. They don't consider women. Not only do they dehumanize women, they barely consider them sentient beings. Really quite disturbing. But it also explores the dehumanization of women by society. So we see the difference in attitude from the police and the journalists, depending upon the social status of women. So prostitutes are almost ignored. Um, troubled teens are almost ignored. Office workers out on a party, that's where they get the column inches. That's when the police get really interested. So it does look at misogyny on a wider scale as well. But where is Rowling coming from? Well, in 2020, for the first time, really, she opens up. J.K. Rowling opens up on her own experience of violence against women and girls performed by men. So, and this was really an explanation of her quite brave stance in terms of gender criticism. So, you will remember initially there was that tweet that went around the world in December 2019. And that was, uh, at the time, I said in the comment section of Hogwarts Professor, if she could have come up with the most innocuous statement that would still turn the activists absolutely crazy mad, that would have been it. I'm almost certain she workshopped that with her PR people. Yeah, because you read it in isolation, and everything seems perfectly reasonable because of course it is uh, completely reasonable. Um, I mean, I read it and my heart sank because I knew what was coming, and I didn't want that for Joe. That maybe that's
This,
a little bit selfish, but that's how I
this,
felt at the time.
this was the same time as the Solway at Coagula tattoo, right?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, almost the same time.
So that was our marker that this was deliberate
Yeah.
self-destruction for transformation and
Yes.
representation of who she is and what she is about. The
Yeah.
age of Joe, the age of Joe chrysalis happens at that moment. Um, anyway, but at that time, she writes about to explain why she's done
Yes.
this. Why this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she writes. We're living through the most misogynistic period I've experienced. Back in the 80s, I imagined that my future daughters, should I have any, would have it far better than I ever did. But between the backlash against feminism and a porn saturated online culture, I believe things have got significantly worse for girls. Never have I seen women denigrated and dehumanized to the extent they are now. From the leader of the free world's long history of sexual assault accusations and his proud boast of grabbing them by the pussy, to the incel, which means involuntarily celibate movement, that rages against women who won't give them sex, to the trans activists who declare that TERFs need punching and re educating, men across the political spectrum seem to agree. Women are asking for trouble. Everywhere, women are being told to shut up and sit down or else. I managed to escape my first violent marriage with some difficulty, but I'm now married to a truly good and principled man, safe and secure in ways I never in a million years expected to be. However, the scars left by violence and sexual assault don't disappear. No matter how loved you are, and no matter how much money you've made, my perennial jumpiness is a family joke. And even I know it's funny, but I pray my daughters never have the same reasons I do for hating sudden loud noises or finding people behind me when I haven't heard them approaching. And obviously, fans of the Cormoran Strike series, we're thinking of Robin's reactions. Yeah, yeah. So this is deep dear to a heart, and I suspect because um, she hadn't been so explicit and of course the career of evil that long predated this statement, but that was on her mind, and I think it was on her mind so much she has to say something, and then she created this book that is filled with examples of the worst kind of misogyny and violence against women and girls, to just put it out there. And going forward in the Strike series, we see it again repeated in milder forms, but throughout the next books in the series.
Yeah, sobering, to say the least. Those of us who, not sharing her reasoning, perhaps, um, but arrive at the same conclusions certainly about the um, transgender activist crowd and their overreach into safe spaces for women and the chemical castration and surgical mutilation of minors. We were sucked in. I personally was sucked into Rowling's cancellation. I lost all my speaking dates, all my publishing opportunities, boom, all gone. I'd been podcasting on major things for ages. You couldn't mention her name online. That would trigger people's horrible reactions because she was literally murdering people. But my best friend and my wife of 38 years is a woman that I didn't learn until she wrote her her master's of fine arts, her memoir, I got to find out about the abuse she suffered from a teen until our marriage, from women, from men that abused her. And I literally was, this was what, I think 30 years into our marriage. I learned really the details of what had happened to her. And and once again, I was confirmed in my thinking that our 4 daughters had escaped. You know, 2 of them are happily married, 2 of them are in the convent. And I thought, wow, how did my children survive this without that kind of injury? Yeah, it's and Career of Evil. That's the Lake backdrop to this.
Yeah.
Where Rowling just drops the veil and we get the shed. I mean, I look at this book here. I got this book. I got my copy of the book, and there's a funny story about this copy of the book. Was that when I first got it, I had to carry it around with the cover reversed. You know, Nick, I had to carry it with me with the cover put on like this. And it was because I flew to the airport in Philadelphia from Oklahoma City to the Chestnut Hill Harry Potter conference. And I arrived at the Oklahoma City airport, and it's 4 days, I think, before Career of Evil is going to be released. And because it was by Robert Galbraith, and the bookstore person at the airport didn't know who Robert Galbraith was, they had put them all out. They had arrived earlier in the month, and so they were all out for sale. And I got Willy Wonka's golden ticket. I had here I was going to a Harry Potter conference with people that were very excited about Cormoran Strike, some were at least. And I had a copy of the book. I mean, Louise Freeman, I only bought 1 copy. She was looking at me like, you didn't buy 3 copies. You just gave me a copy of this. And I had to carry it around with me in that white cover so people wouldn't know that I had a copy of the book. It was the only Cormoran Strike novel that I've been able to write a day of publication review because I'd already read it. I had 4 days to read it before the book came out. I didn't get to guess, halfway through who done it because I already figured that out. Now, I mean, that seems hopelessly glib after what we've been talking about. But I should tell you, my son, who when I came back, I bought another copy for my sons to read. Maybe I bought 2 copies. I think at one point I had 3 copies of Career of Evil. Before publication day. And for the next 3 books, Nick, I want you to know I called that airport bookstore to see if they had, copies of that. And always they're like, what are you talking about? Oh, well, that was a one-off. But my son Zosima, the novelist, really a brilliant writer and reader, he read it, and he, of course, was having the experience that we had too of just sobriety, just reading this. And I said, when he finished it, he just closed the book, and there was no like triumphal, wow, what a wonderful book. Because he really is into the artistry of these things, as you can imagine. And he said, Dad, I get it. I'm the son of a man, and I have a relationship with my mother and my sisters, and I will have daughters, and I will have girlfriends and a wife. And because of my biological condition, I'm a psychopath who must hurt all of them. And he said, this is just so punishing for a man to read. And I thought, yeah, that's Rowling is making a point about the misogyny of the period, and as you said, that she felt that people of all across the political spectrum were telling women to shut up or else. But boy, it's a tough book. So the shed thing that I want to talk about today is specifically how bad it is. I don't want to go through the violence against women thing, but I want to talk about it as a golden thread. So let's get into that. The Third Strike novel, as Roland Galbraith once admitted, is borderline violence porn, and it seems a little more than a hat tip to Ian Rankin's Rebus novels that are set in Edinburgh. Specifically Black and Blue, whence the psychopath's point of view chapters, the Donnie Lang chapters, and the rock and roll lyric epigraphs. Black and Blue is a reference to a Rolling Stones album. This may have been the worst thing Roland Galbraith has allowed to be published if it fills a necessary space in the 7-book ring and provides important backstory. It's painful reading unless you get off on the dismemberment, stabbing, and sexual assault of women. It is, speaking as frankly as possible, not worth revisiting unless you need to recharge your misandrist batteries. So I rated it when we did this rating thing, and I'll put a link up. I'll send you the link, Nick, to put up that has the rating game that we did when we had only 6 books. We were waiting for Running Grave, and some people at a dinner party rated all 6 books, and then they put it up on Twitter, and a bunch of Twitter people rated the first 6 books 1 to 6, best to worst. And then at Hogwarts Professor, we did a controlled study where you couldn't read any of the things that the 6 or 7 of us wrote about it until you wrote up what you considered the best to the worst 1 to 6. And incredibly, in my mind, the dinner party people rated Career of Evil either the best novel of the first 6 or the second best one. And the Twitter people largely followed in the wake. There were 2 people in the Twitter crowd that said, no, that's number 6. That's the worst. Every single one of the thing, except I think Elizabeth, rated it number 6. I think Elizabeth made it number 5. Now that was an amazing consensus for us who agree about almost nothing. I mean, you saw that, like the Silkworm, I think there were 6 or 7 of us, received a single vote for best, second best, third best, fourth best, fifth best, sixth best. The Silkworm was got the entire spread, like best to worst. It was astonishing to me. But not Career of Evil, worst, right across the board. And I still think it's the worst. Now that's not to say, I mean, Rowling says it said at the time that it was her most difficult one to plot. Remember her plot and narrative lines. That and it was the most complicated structure, she said. I mean, they're literally all over the map, and figuratively all over the map inside this book. She cursed herself because she had 3 suspects. And she said in the middle of it, I'm like, why did I have to come up with 3 suspects? It's a tough book. Yeah. What's funny is it should be famous to the gender critical crowd and their opposite numbers in the transgender supporting community is that transabled lunch at the museum. I mean, that is the straightest thing Rowling has ever written in fiction about the trans community. And it's hard not to believe that her response to people who offer transgenderism as a civil rights crusade, that Strike's reaction to these people that want to cut off their limbs, having lost a limb himself, is this is where she's going with that. Okay. But I want to put this into the golden thread area, because in that respect, this is probably the most important single book in the oeuvre about violence against women. About the same time that Career of Evil came out, Patrick Macaulay at Chestnut Hill College came out with a wonderful book, still available, called Into the Pensieve. It's an important work on several levels. but I think his discussion of the subliminal and essential place of violence against women in the Potter's Schoolboy epic is the most significant contribution in the book. And if you have access to MuggleNet Academia, he talks at really powerful length about that in episode 36 of MuggleNet Academia. I'll put Nick. I'm going to send you a link to that episode. Maybe you listen to that one, Nick. In brief, Harry Potter, Thomas Riddle Jr., Albus, Wulfric, etc., Dumbledore, and Severus Snape are the men they are because of the tragic abuse of the most important women in their lives. Okay? This and the several suggested rapes embedded in the novel, Katie Bell, Dolores Umbridge, Helena Ravenclaw, and of course Ariana, make violence against women as much a part of the wizarding world backdrop as the magic is. Macaulay's thesis has, really has only been confirmed by Rowling's post-Potter, novels. Casual Vacancy is a painful slideshow of women of all ages, class, and belief in duress, usually because of the abuse of men with whom they are in relationship. The first two Strike mysteries that we've talked about are about the painful lives of women unable to be the people they wanted to be. Lulu Landry is haunted and hunted by the press, and all the women attached to Owen Quine, wife Leonora, agent Liz Tassel, lover Kate Kent, they're abused by him. His horrific murder is almost a liberation. Career of Evil takes this theme way, way up to agonizing new levels. Rowling has said the research she did for this novel gave her nightmares. And, right? That's more than credible.
Yeah.
Those of us who read these things and didn't read them straight through know what she's talking about. Sensitive readers will certainly flinch at the violent histories and events recounted in Career, all of which seem to involve the rape, the beating, or mental torture of wife, girlfriend, mother, or sister. Not to mention the stalking of Robin Ellicott and our murderer's fantasy of dismembering her and his actual dismembering of the thing. Now, I this morning I got up and I went to Strike Fans and I went to Wikipedia. I grabbed the book off the shelf and I decided I'm going to make a list of all these things. Nick, it's a list here. Here's my list here. First, we'll start off with Brockbank. Okay, he's a twin, and basically there's incestuous rape with his sister Holly, and it just her whole life is sent into a spin from that. He's a serial pedophile. He was molesting his own daughter. But of course, if you've been raping your sister, what's hands off about your daughter? And that really haunted Strike Brittany Brockbank. And then we find out at the end that he's after Alyssa, Zahara's daughter. And that's the bad guy who's the most off stage. We never meet Brittany. We see Alyssa, and we do meet Holly, but we don't get that kind of live action thing that we do with this. There's Jeff Whitaker, the second suspect. He has a woman's sex toy teenager named Stephanie who's really hostage to him. She's a mental and physical, emotional prisoner of this man. And then Strike goes back and he revisits how Whitaker treated his mother in those flats. Again, just physical, emotional, and mental abuse. There's Matt Cunliffe, of course, and his disregard of Robin, his admitted infidelity, and then the suggestion we find out later is active adultery. There's Wardle's wife, April. There's the prostitutes at the Thai Orchid in Market Harborough, who, because Strike isn't going there for sexual favors, he's going there for information. It comes off almost as half comic, but it's when they drive away from that place and you realize what the world those women live in this backwater town. What a nightmare. And there's Donnie Lang. Donnie Lang, the psychopath. The Donnie chapters, you said, where we crawl into the mind of a psychopath. We start off with Kelsey Platt, the young woman who he butchers really in the opening, and Robin gets her severed leg delivered to her and a toe later. His first wife is she gets a knife in the vagina. She's tortured. I mean, the scene where Strike in his memory recalls the discovery of Donnie Lang's wife. Was it in Crete?
Cyprus. So there's
Cyprus.
a British military base in Cyprus.
That's right.
Yeah, that's a shocking scene. Not least her psychological reaction that even though she's in the midst of being rescued, it's her fear. Don't know. You can't take me away. He'll be back.
The death of the child. When Strike gets to revisit this in his conversation with Margaret Bunyan in Melrose, the young wife's family, her devastation to this day, and of course she doesn't have any grandchildren because of the way that Lang tortured her. That's our intro to Donnie Lang. Why didn't we know he was the murderer just from that? Because Brockbank is sick and Whitaker's a nutter, but Lang is just totally around the twist. And then he interviews Lorraine McNaughton and Hazel, the two of the women that, one in Corby, and those wives are the ones that he talks about like they're less than cattle. He manipulates them. He does all these things with them. They're his hiding place and such. But the madness and the hatred for women, devastating. So, and of course, he kills Hazel's younger sister, 24 years younger sister, Kelsey, cuts her up. And then we go in Melrose. Strike's first stop is at Donnie Lang's mother's house. And she, I think, has either dementia or Alzheimer's. But she's not a friendly woman. No. She's an angry, tortured woman. And we find out that Donnie Lang had been conceived in an affair when she was separated from her husband. And the husband took her back, but clearly physically and mentally abused her, as well as Donnie Lang. We get a little bit of the Severus Snape type origin story for him, and then we have the prostitute in the alley that Donnie Lang cuts into pieces. She survives miraculously, and then Heather Smart, the tourist at the royal wedding. I mean, that murder scene. That's where I think she crossed the line into violence porn. We get a bit of a redemption from that arc about the helplessness of these women just being, mutilated. And then there's another murder in a hedge, right?
Yeah.
And then of course there's the attack on Robin that we see, live, and that's a helpful thing because Robin fights back successfully. Yeah. Whew. Did I miss any, Nick? I mean, was that
You're braver than I am even to attempt to construct a list, because it does seem relentless when you're reading the book.
As you said, especially because you know the next Donnie chapter is coming. I mean, after you get a few Donnie chapters, you're like, oh, please let there be an epigraph when I turn the page. I mean, we're laughing about it, but that's it's, as I said about the painful parts of Casual Vacancy. It's sobering, especially because of my wife's experiences. Yeah. My own reflection on my life as a serial fornicating young man, and there's nothing you can do but look back at that and say, oh wow, what an ass, and to pray that person has been transformed through a marriage to a loving woman and a relationship. My wife's, primal question is, am I safe? And after 38 years, she's beginning to say, I think I'm safe. And so when I read Rowling's that thing you read,
Yeah.
when I read that for the first time, I thought, I know that woman. That she's not. My wife doesn't have PTSD in that fashion, but she was, strangled. She was sexually assaulted. She's got plenty of things in the rear view mirror that would make a sane person, tremble that way. That was a revelation to me. And so I said to my son, who knows his mother's story too, that, you have to understand that your job is not only to provide, but to protect the women that you love, because they are what they are and who they are, because of their vulnerability. And if you're not protecting them, then they're not protected. Amazing things. Okay, Dickens. I've talked about Dickens before. It's kind of a one-note wonder. All of his books, except Pickwick, turn to greater or lesser degree on the helplessness of children in modern industrial England. I suspect that Rowling may be remembered as a writer consumed by the nightmare of women at risk, women in abusive homes, and relationships they cannot escape. It's not a risky theme. I made this joke at the end of, I think it's kind of like being against illiteracy to be against rape. No one is for violence against women, and speaking out against it requires no more courage than being against slavery or air pollution. But like Dickens and his orphans, Rowling's women stay with the reader and brings to the front of the mind the tragedies that surround us, what we too often dismiss as inevitable or inconsequential, and maybe just dismiss as not being real, because it's not happening on the streets. It's like we live in an antiseptic culture. If someone dies, they die in a hospital. It used to be they died in the street outside your house. Death was much more in your nostrils in previous centuries. Rowling, to the serious reader, she brings the state of women in the postmodern world right to the front of your mind. If you're not aware of it and you want to ignore it, this is not where you want to be. Do I think, Career of Evil is fairly put as her worst novel? I lost some friends, Nick, but I said that and it kind of teased the people that said it was the best of the series. That teasing, that's fun. That's sort of what I do online. But that estimation reminds me of the response of some feminists to Nabokov's Lolita. Lolita is a masterpiece. I don't care what you. But if you read it and you say, as one famous Potter pundit said to me, that it was justification for the sexual abuse of children. It was a celebration. The word she used was celebration, a celebration of the sexual abuse of children. I was just like, are you kidding me? The guy is clearly around the twist, but it brings this taboo area about the abuse of children and the sexual desires of men right to the front of the reader's attention in a way that is done so masterfully. You slide right into it, and all of a sudden you're in the mind of this psychopath for this entire novel. It's a devastating work. That response, I'm afraid I was much more of that Potter pundit's dismissal of Career of Evil, because I was saying what made me uncomfortable, this violence porn that was overdone. I think that when we get all 10 books, it like Prisoner of Azkaban, which is a weird book among the Harry Potter books, just the way Career of Evil is a weird book among the Cormoran Strike novels. I think at the end we're going to see much more appreciation from Career of Evil from people like me, who now just dismiss it for its artistry and for its representation of what is clearly one of the defining beliefs in Rowling's Lake and her Shed, violence against women.
I suspect you're right. I know personally, I know that my rating of the book suffered because I struggled to read it, which for me is a little bit counterintuitive, because I found everything else she's written so easy and so enjoyable to read. Normally, I pick up a book and I struggle to read it. I think, wow, this must be really good, you know? So
Like
I
Casual
think,
Vacancy. Are we talking
yeah,
about
yeah.
Casual Vacancy? Yeah, just as Casual Vacancy is almost certainly as uh, in the writing of the critical biography, Casual Vacancy is going to be front and
Yeah.
center. And so I think Career of Evil, because of the importance, and especially in this um, period of Rowling's life, what you've called the power period of her life, um, this is a defining statement. And that it was written really in the run-up and published in the run-up to Rowling's decision to do this. That transabled scene in the museum cafeteria is Rowling, I think, bracing herself for the Solway and Coagula experience to come.
Oh, yeah.
There's simply no way that it's sort of like the Ink Black Heart stuff. Like, oh, I plotted that out
Yeah.
in advance, and I didn't. No, you knew that was coming. You know, when you were writing this up, you planned this out. I mean,
But it's
Neil Murray, if you follow his Twitter feed, is a gender critical man and a physician. What do they call it? Sex-based medicine, biology-based medicine,
I,
biology-based feminism. What do you call it? What's the
I
phrase, Nick?
so yeah, so he's he follows a group of people who practice evidence-based medicine, and yes, he is very much a gender critic. Although I think his medical interests are quite wide. So as well as evidence-based medicine, many would argue that would be on an opposite spectrum to homeopathy, which is another particular interest of his. And I know when he was in GP practice, he actually used homeopathy as part of his practice within that surgery.
Huh. That's funny.
Yeah.
In not in the ha ha way, but in the queer sort of way, you know, that that homeopathy, of course, is the survive. I shouldn't say, of course, not well known. Maybe I should put a link to this inside the this thing. That homeopathy is the surviving remnant of alchemy, metallurgical alchemy. So that's a fascinating thing that the premier literary alchemist of our age has a husband who dabbled in the sacred science
That's
himself.
great.
Um,
So next up, we have a work that wasn't written by J.K. Rowling. Is that right?
yeah,
What are
what
we
is this
doing,
on the
John?
list for? Yeah, who made this list? Gosh, I
So, Cursed Child. I haven't seen the play. John, have you?
no.
No. Okay. So we're going to
Do I
be.
ever intend to, Nick? Go ahead, ask me that question. Do I
Do
ever
you ever
intend?
intend to, John?
No, because I mean, even the original that they did is no longer. You can't see it anywhere in the world, right?
You can in the UK. In the
Oh,
UK, it's
well, great.
still part one and part two. Come over here, John. We'll put you up for the
Yeah,
weekend.
yeah.
We'll go and see it. I would still like to go and see it. I agree with you absolutely. If I'm going to see it, I want to see the full parts one and part two. But we are going to be talking about it just based on the script, right?
Yes. How
Okay.
else can we talk about
Right.
it?
Well, it makes my lake pillar relatively easy to do because she didn't write the script. My lake pillar is going to be her experience of being pitched for the play, working with the play, and seeing it through to completion.
Okay, I hope you'll talk about Black Hermione because and John Thorne's decision making process there because that to me is just still kind of just that's. But anyway, I'm not going to go Black Hermione. That's not my problem. Um, I want to talk about um, what part of Cursed Child I think she wrote, and what parts I think are Thorne's decisions.
Okay.
And we know certainly, I mean, the short story has really been like all play scripts are, it's been it's a moving target.
Yeah.
I'm confident if you took the play scripts to the theater in New York City, you'd just be, where is that? It's not in here. So we'll see how this
You
plays out.
know, I'm treating these video watches on our Substack as a sort of a poll. So I'm really interested to see how many's going to watch next week's show. Sorry, tomorrow's recording.
Yeah, that and Fantastic Beasts 1.
Yeah.
I have a lot more to say about Fantastic Beasts 1. I did a lot of work on that screenplay, which we also don't know what she wrote, what she didn't write. But yeah, looking forward to that.
Right.
And then I'm very much looking forward to coming back to a book we know she wrote.
Brilliant. Thank you, John.
Oh, pleasure. And big shout out to all those people that voted for Career of Evil as #1. Your time is coming. Your time is coming.